That night, beneath the crystal chandeliers of the country club, my mother raised her glass and smiled. She's tried everything and still amounts to nothing. I looked around the table. Everyone nodded as if they'd just heard gospel truth. I didn't argue. I set my napkin down, stood up, and said very quietly, "If you want to see failure, watch closely tonight. As for results, I'll see you at next month's gala." From that moment on, I began rewriting my entire life story and signing it with style. My name is Elena Hart, and I've always been my parents' most expensive disappointment. The Bayside Country Club dining room gleamed like a jewelry box that night, all mahogany panels and gold-framed mirrors reflecting our table of 8. Crystal stemware caught the light from the chandelier above, fracturing it into tiny rainbows that danced across the white tablecloth. The Steinway in the corner played something tasteful and forgettable. Everything was perfect, which should have been my first warning. "Tell them about Marcus's promotion," Mrs. Whitfield urged her husband, her diamonds catching fire as she gestured. "Senior partner at 34. Can you imagine? And Sophia just closed her 3rd acquisition this quarter." Another voice chimed in. "That little tech startup of hers is worth $40 million now." I cut into my Dover soul, watching the flesh flake apart, clean, precise. The way everything in this room pretended to be. My mother, Patricia Hart, touched her pearls always 3 strands, never 2, never 4. "Well, we can't all raise overachievers." She laughed, that crystalline sound that fooled everyone who didn't know better. "Elena had her experiment with those prefab houses. What did you call them? Dear modular something. Sustainable modular housing," I said quietly. "Right. That little venture that burned through, what was it? Gregory 2 years 3. My father swirled his Bordeaux. 2 years, 8 months, and approximately $200,000. If we're keeping score." He smiled at Colin Price across the table. "Though I suppose that includes the research grant from the foundation." Colin's mouth twitched. He knew exactly what that grant had bought my silence when he'd stolen my designs. "She's our permanent investment loss," Patricia added, raising her glass. "But we love her anyway, don't we?" The laughter rippled around the table like breaking glass. Mrs. Whitfield tried to look sympathetic. The Prestons studied their salmon. Colin Price just smiled. I set down my fork. The tiny clink echoed louder than it should have. "You know what's funny," I said, standing slowly. "You're absolutely right. I am a failure. By every metric that matters in this room, the connections I didn't leverage, the corners I wouldn't cut, the designs I wouldn't let you steal and rebrand as charity work." Patricia's smile froze. "Elena, sit down." "I particularly failed," I continued, my voice steady as a level. "When I believed that earning your approval meant something, that was definitely my biggest loss." Gregory's jaw tightened. "You're making a scene." "No, I'm making an exit." I folded my napkin with the same precision I'd learned at their etiquette classes. "But since you love keeping score, mark your calendars. The Harborview Urban Recovery Gala, 30 days from tonight, right back in this room." I looked at the banner hanging over the bar, gold letters on forest green silk announcing next month's premier charity event, where my parents would receive their Lifetime Achievement Award for civic excellence. "You want to see what failure looks like?" I picked up my clutch. "Come to your own gala. I'll show you what it looks like when it's done with style." The Steinway kept playing. The chandelier kept sparkling. But something had shifted in the air, like the pressure drop before a storm. I walked out through the club's double doors, past the valet stand, into the October night. The parking lot stretched before me, every car a testament to the right choices, the safe choices, the choices that kept you invited to tables like the one I'd just left. My phone buzzed. 3 missed calls from Patricia already. I ignored them and opened my messages. "Maya, we're launching Larkspur Modular tonight. Can you meet me at the Harbor Warehouse in an hour?" Her response came in seconds, already drafting the incorporation docs. "Theo's here with the structural plans." Your Aunt Lydia says the workshop's ready. I looked back at the country club, its windows glowing warm and false against the darkness. Through the glass, I could see them still talking, probably dissecting my behavior, adding it to the long list of my disappointments. They had no idea what was coming. In 30 days, they'd sit in that same room, surrounded by the same people, expecting the same performance of polished respectability. Instead, they'd get the truth served cold, documented thoroughly, and impossible to deny. I started my car and pulled out onto the coast highway. The warehouse was 40 minutes away. I had work to do. The warehouse smelled like sawdust and possibility. I stood in the doorway, remembering another doorway. 25 years ago. I was 7. My report card burned in my backpack straight A's except for one A- in handwriting. Patricia had held it up to the kitchen light like she was checking for counterfeit bills. Lazy, she'd said. Simply lazy. The Weatherby's daughter has perfect marks across the board. That was my first lesson. Victory meant nothing if someone else's was bigger. By high school, I'd learned to play their game. Valedictorian wasn't enough. It had to be valedictorian with early admission to Cornell. Cornell wasn't enough. It had to be Cornell with recruitment from North River Urban before graduation. Even that wasn't enough. It had to be North River with fast track to senior management. Elena! Maya's voice pulled me back. She stood by a drafting table, red-framed glasses perched on her nose, legal pad already half filled. You okay? Just remembering why we're here? The why was scattered across Theo's workspace, 3 years of designs I'd developed at North River, refined on nights and weekends, polished until they sang. Sustainable modular housing that could be assembled in 6 hours, weatherize against Category 4 hurricanes, and cost 40% less than traditional construction. My boss at North River, Harrison Wells. Gregory's Yale roommate had called them interesting. Then he'd called them premature. Then he'd called them his. Presenting my work to the board with his signature on every page. The NDA I'd signed was airtight. Harrison made sure of that. But the real betrayal came later, wrapped in family concern and tied with a bow of conditional love. The Hart Foundation's startup grant, $50,000 that seemed like salvation after I'd quit North River rather than watch Harrison profit from my designs. I pulled out the contract, now dog-eared from my constant rereading. Page 7, subsection 12.4. Any intellectual property developed using Foundation resources, facilities, or connections becomes joint property of the grant recipient and the Hart Foundation. Resources included the conference room where I'd held one meeting. Facilities included the printer I'd used once. Connections included anyone Gregory had ever introduced me to. They'd stolen my future and called it charity. The trap was elegant, I told Maya, showing her the contract. They knew I'd never read the fine print carefully. I trusted them. Maya studied the document, her lawyer's eye catching what my daughter's heart had missed. This clause here, using Foundation resources, it's specific. If Larkspur never touches anything connected to the Foundation, we're free. I pulled out a manila folder, thick with receipts. Every tool in Aunt Lydia's workshop purchased independently. The warehouse leased under Theo's name. The materials bought with a loan from the Fishermen's Collective. Not a penny from any source Gregory could touch. Theo looked up from his calculations. You've been planning this. Since the day Harrison presented my hurricane-resistant joint system to the Planning Commission as his own innovation. Since Patricia called to say how proud they were that I was finally learning how the real world works. I spread out the emails Maya had helped me recover through disclosure requests. Harrison to Gregory. Your daughter's ideas have potential. With proper guidance, they could be worth millions. Gregory's reply, guide away. She needs to learn that success requires compromise. Patricia's addition. Perhaps this will finally teach her that family reputation matters more than individual credit. They sold me, I said quietly. Packaged my ambition, tied it with their conditions, and sold me to the highest bidder in their network. Maya touched my shoulder. The Harborview Housing Office just released their emergency RFP. 40 units needed within 60 days. Colin Price is already positioning for it. With my designs, the ones Harrison mysteriously developed last year, I laughed, short and sharp. The ones the Hart Foundation is backing as their signature charitable initiative. So we beat them, Theo said simply. We build better, faster, cheaper. We make their stolen goods worthless. I walked to the window, looking out at the harbor. Somewhere across the city, my parents were probably home now, discussing my outburst over Brandy and Gregory's study. They'd craft the narrative mental exhaustion, creative temperament, the pressure of repeated failure. By tomorrow, everyone at the club would know their version, but I had 30 days to write my own. We're not just building houses, I said. We're building proof that excellence doesn't require their connections, that integrity isn't naive, that when someone calls you a failure at dinner, you can serve them the truth for dessert. Maya pulled out her laptop. Then we'd better get started. The gala's in 30 days, and we have a show to prepare. I thought about that A- in handwriting, about every moment they'd moved the target just as I was about to hit it. This time, I wasn't aiming for their target. I was building my own. Day 1, 4:23 a.m. The harbor warehouse hummed with focused energy. Structural load calculations verified, Theo announced, pushing his glasses up his nose. These panels can withstand winds up to 130 miles per hour, better than Colin's specs by 40%. I ran my hand along the prototype's frame-clean lines. Honest materials. Nothing hidden or prettified. How fast for assembly? 6 hours with a 4-person crew? We could do it in 5, but let's keep a buffer. Maya looked up from her laptop. Law books scattered around her like armor. Larkspur Modular LLC officially exists. Filed with the state at midnight. Bank account opens at 9. The Fisherman's Collective Loan clears tomorrow $75,000 at 2% interest. They didn't question it, I asked. Miguel's daughter lived in one of your North River designs before Harrison claimed credit. They remember who actually solved their mold problem. She pulled out another document. More interesting, the Hart Foundation's ownership clause has a critical exception. I leaned in. If the intellectual property was developed before the grant period, they only have claim to modifications made during the grant term. Your original patents filed 3 weeks before you signed their contract. My Aunt Lydia walked in carrying coffee in her toolbox, sawdust still in her gray hair from yesterday's work. Workshop's ready. Got Bernie and his crew on standby for CNC cutting. They remember when Gregory tried to lowball them on that community center job. This was our team. Not an empire built on favors and debts, but something cleaner, people who believed in the work itself. Timeline, I said, pinning up a calendar. Day 5, working prototype complete. Day 10, HOHR site inspection. Day 15, stress testing with public demonstration. Day 25, final presentation prep. Day 30, the gala. You mean our debut? Maya corrected. Theo spread out the technical drawings. The beauty is in what we're not doing. No limestone facades to inflate the price. No custom fixtures that delay production. Every component is standard, but the configuration is revolutionary. I picked up a wall panel sample recycled aluminum frame, bamboo composite core, triple-sealed joints. Colin's using traditional materials with a 20% markup for luxury finishing. Same structure my parents' foundation is promoting as affordable housing at 3 times the actual cost. Criminal, Lydia muttered, testing a joint with practiced hands. No, Maya said carefully. Just unethical enough to be legal. But if we can prove comparable quality at true cost, we destroy their entire model. I opened my laptop, pulling up the design software. Which is exactly what we're going to do. For the next 16 hours, we worked like a perfectly calibrated machine. Theo refined load calculations while I adjusted the thermal envelope. Maya drafted contracts with suppliers, negotiating prices down to the penny. Lydia transformed raw materials into precise components, her 40 years of craftsmanship making difficult joints look effortless. By 8:45 p.m., we had our first wall standing. It's beautiful, Maya said quietly. She was right. Not beautiful like the country club's gilded dining room, but beautiful like truth clean, functional, honest. My phone buzzed. Patricia. Your father and I are concerned. Dr. Morrison has an opening Tuesday. I showed it to the team. They think I'm having a breakdown. Are you? Theo asked, genuinely curious. I looked at our wall, our first solid piece of evidence. No, I'm having a breakthrough. Day 2 brought challenges. The aluminum supplier Gregory played golf with suddenly couldn't fill our order. 3 contractors canceled meetings after scheduling conflicts. The city inspector mentioned unusual delays in our permit review. They're squeezing us, Maya observed. Good. I pulled out my backup supplier list companies Gregory had scorned, contractors he'd lowballed, inspectors he'd ignored at charity functions. Let them think their network is everything. We'll build our own. By day 3, we had 4 walls and a roof. The Fishermen's Collective sent their members to see the progress. Word spread through the harbor district the Hart Kid was building something real. Miguel himself came by, ran his weathered hands over the joints. This could survive the storm surge of '98. This could survive worse. Theo confirmed. Then you have our backing. And Elena. Miguel looked me straight in the eye. Your father once told me I should be grateful for any work his friends threw my way. Build this. Show them what ungrateful looks like when it's properly engineered. Day 4. We filmed everything. Time-lapse cameras caught the assembly process 6 hours and 12 minutes from foundation to finishing touches. Maya uploaded it to a private server. Our insurance against future theft. 26 days until the gala, I said, checking off another day. Lydia raised her coffee mug. To proving them wrong. No, I corrected, thinking of Patricia's smile. Gregory's casual cruelty. Colin's smirk. To proving ourselves right, in style. The warehouse echoed with the sound of precision work resuming our answer being built one honest measurement at a time. Day 12. The email arrived at 6:17 a.m. HOHR regrets to inform you that your certification inspection has been postponed indefinitely due to administrative backlog. I stared at the screen while Maya paced behind me, phone pressed to her ear. Yes, I'll hold, she said for the 5th time. Theo looked up from his stress test results. Gregory. I pulled up another email, this one from a materials supplier. Dear Ms. Hart, upon review, we cannot extend credit terms to new businesses without established revenue history. 3 more cancellations sat in my inbox, all dated within the last hour, all suddenly discovering policies that hadn't existed yesterday. They're coordinating, Maya said, hanging up. The HOHR delay came right after a lunch meeting between your father and Commissioner Reynolds. The warehouse door slammed open. Lydia stalked in, holding a newspaper like a weapon. You need to see this. Harborview Daily's business section. Front page below the fold. Hart Foundation heiress's latest failure inherited privilege can't build success. The byline belonged to Vivian Hale, the foundation's PR director. The article was a masterpiece of concerned condescension. Sources close to the family express worry about Elena Hart's pattern of incomplete ventures. She's brilliant but unfocused, one insider noted. The family has supported numerous attempts, including a generous grant for her current project, which appears to be struggling with basic regulatory compliance. Current project, I laughed, sharp and bitter. They're claiming Larkspur is theirs. Maya grabbed the paper. This line here, generous grant for her current project. That's legally actionable if we can prove no lawsuits, I said. That's what they expect. The unstable daughter lashing out through litigation. My phone buzzed. A text from Colin Price. Saw the article. Happy to help if you want to consult on my upcoming HOHR bid. Your ideas deserve proper execution. Another buzz. Patricia. Darling, this has gone far enough. Come home. We'll fix this together. They're offering you an out. Theo observed. Surrender with dignity and tact. I stood up. Decision crystallizing. Maya, call Channel 7. Tell them we're doing a public demonstration tomorrow. Open build day, 2 p.m. Anyone can attend. Elena, without HOHR certification. We don't need their certification to prove what we can build. I turned to Lydia. Can your crew work overnight? She grinned. Bernie's been waiting for payback since Gregory stiffed him in '99. Theo, run the storm simulation again. Maximum transparency every weak point, every stress factor. We hide nothing. Maya hesitated. If something goes wrong with public watching, then we fail honestly, which is still better than succeeding through their methods. Day 13, 1:45 p.m. The harbor lot buzzed with unexpected energy. Channel 7's van, 3 food trucks Miguel had called in, nearly 200 people, mostly from the fishing district, some from the university's engineering department, and in a black town car at the lot's edge, Gregory and Patricia Hart. They came, Maya whispered. Of course they did. They need to control the narrative when we fail. Exactly. I stood before the crowd with a microphone that kept trying to feedback. 15 days ago, my parents called me a failure at dinner. Today, I'm going to show you what I failed to do. I failed to take shortcuts, failed to inflate costs, failed to accept that housing should be a luxury item. I signaled Theo. The crew moved into position. 6 hours, 1 house, 36 square meters. Total cost 38% below market rate. Let's begin. The foundation went down in minutes. Precast concrete pads we'd tested against earthquake standards. The frame rose like conductors' batons, each joint clicking into place with engineered precision. 4:17 p.m. The wind picked up. A cable on the lifting rig started to fray. Stop! Someone shouted from the crowd. I recognized him, Phillips, one of Gregory's contractor friends. That's unsafe. You're risking people's lives. The Channel 7 camera swung toward the cable. I could see tomorrow's headline writing itself, Hart Heiress's dangerous demonstration ends in near disaster. The crowd murmured. Patricia stepped forward, concern painted perfectly on her face. I walked to the rig, ran my hand along the cable. The fraying was superficial. The load capacity remained well within limits. But explaining that would sound like excuses. Instead, I unclipped the cable entirely. You're right, Mr. Phillips. That cable is compromised. I turned to my crew. Manual lift. 4-person carry. Lydia stepped forward first, then Miguel, then 2 of his fishermen. Together, they lifted the roof section. No machines, no shortcuts, just human strength and determination. The section settled perfectly into place. Phillips retreated to his car. Patricia's concerned expression flickered. 8:23 p.m. Sunset painted everything gold. The house stood complete, simple, sturdy, revolutionary in its honesty. Commissioner Reynolds appeared, clipboard in hand. Ms. Hart, this demonstration doesn't constitute official inspection. Sir, an older woman interrupted. She wore a University of Portland engineering jacket. Professor Kim, Structural Engineering Department. I've been recording stress readings all day. This exceeds HOHR standards by significant margins. She handed him a tablet full of data. Real-time measurements, independently verified. Reynolds looked at Gregory, then at the data, then at the crowd with their phones out, recording everything. I'll expedite the official inspection, he muttered. The crowd erupted. Someone started a slow clap that built into thunder. I found my parents in the chaos. Gregory's jaw was tight. Patricia's smile had gone brittle. Congratulations, Patricia said loudly enough for others to hear. You've certainly made a statement. I leaned in close, my voice just for them. That was just the preview. See you at the gala. As the crowd dispersed, Maya showed me her phone. The live stream had gone viral, 50,000 views and climbing. Elena, a young reporter, pushed forward. Any comment on Colin Price's announcement that he's withdrawing from the HOHR bid? I hadn't known, but I kept my expression steady. Mr. Price should follow his conscience. Later, in the warehouse, Theo pulled up Colin's press release. He'd cited scheduling conflicts. He's retreating. Maya analyzed. Calculating that distance from your parents is safer than proximity right now. 17 days until the gala, I said, looking at our prototype glowing in the harbor moonlight. They'll regroup, plan something bigger. Lydia handed me a beer. Let them. We've got something they don't. What's that? She gestured at the messages flooding in, engineers offering help, suppliers extending credit, 3 city council members requesting site visits. Momentum, she said, and the truth. Day 18. The HOHR emergency RFP hit my inbox at 7:21 a.m. 40 modular units for Riverside relocation, completion within 60 days, budget cap $2.4 million, energy efficiency standards mandatory. Maya calculated quickly. $60,000 per unit maximum. Collins luxury modules cost $90,000 minimum. Our prototype came in at $37,000, Theo added. Even with scale adjustments, we can deliver at $42,000 per unit. I read the fine print. Submission deadline 72 hours. Site presentation required. Community benefit component weighted at 30%. They accelerated the timeline, I said. Someone wants this settled before the gala. The warehouse door opened. A courier handed Maya an envelope Heart Foundation letterhead. She read aloud. The Heart Foundation is pleased to offer sponsorship for 5 units of the HOHR project, utilizing our established design partnership with Price Construction. This generous donation would reduce municipal burden while ensuring quality standards. Translation, I said. They'll subsidize Collins' overpriced units, claim charitable credit, and lock in the contract through donor preference. Lydia looked up from her welding. The city can't refuse free units. They can if someone offers better. I pulled up our financial projections. Maya, what if we include workforce development training local residents in modular assembly? That's expensive. That's investment. Every person we train becomes an asset for future projects. The city gets housing and job creation. Maya's fingers flew across her keyboard. If we structure it as a social enterprise, 15% of labor costs offset by state workforce grants. We could hit $38,000 per unit and still include training. Do it. Full proposal. Every detail bulletproof. Day 19. 10:15 p.m. We worked in shifts, me refining technical specifications, Theo running cost analyses, Maya crafting legal framework, Lydia coordinating with suppliers. My phone rang. Unknown number. Ms. Hart. This is Rebecca Walsh from the Portland Tribune. I'm investigating discrepancies in Heart Foundation housing initiatives. I have documents suggesting your parents' organization claimed tax credits for designs they didn't develop. Care to comment? I looked at Maya, who nodded. On record, Larkspur Modular stands behind our original patents and documentation. We'll let our HOHR submission speak for itself. Off record. I hesitated. Then, check the patent filing dates against the Foundation's grant dispersals. The timeline tells its own story. Day 20. Colin resurfaced with a new strategy. His revised proposal mysteriously leaked to Channel 7 promised units at $55,000 each, with Heart Foundation support ensuring quality. He's undercutting his real costs. Theo analyzed. Those materials alone cost $40,000. He's planning to cut corners after winning. Or bill overages later, Maya added. Page 12 has an escalation clause for unforeseen circumstances. I spread out Colin's leaked designs next to ours. His were my original concepts, simplified, cheapened, weakened. Elena, Lydia held up her phone. Bernie just sent this. A photo from the country club. Gregory, Patricia, Colin, and Commissioner Reynolds at lunch. Champagne on the table. They think they've won, Maya said. Good. Overconfidence makes people sloppy. I pulled out a folder Lydia had given me that morning, receipts, emails, invoices. Ready to see what Aunt Lydia found in her 30-year-old files. The documents told a story, Heart Foundation's history of claiming credit for community projects they'd merely funded. Not created. Invoice after invoice for design work. All charged to the Foundation. All presented as charitable development. This one. Lydia pointed to a 2015 document. Community Center in the Fishing District. Foundation claimed they developed it. But here's Bernie's original design invoice. And here's Colin's bill for consulting, just passing Bernie's work along with a 300% markup. Maya whistled low. This is a pattern. They're not philanthropists. They're middlemen taking credit and profit from actual creators. But proving it requires Bernie and others to come forward, I said. That risks their future contracts. Not if the future contracts come from us, Theo said quietly. If Larkspur wins this bid, we become the alternative. I stood. Decision made. Maya, add this to our proposal, 20% of all subcontracts reserved for local small businesses. Document everything. Day 21. Submission day. 3 p.m. Deadline. We arrived at City Hall at 2:45 p.m. Colin was already there, leather portfolio in hand, Gregory beside him. Elena, Gregory said loudly, still pursuing this, the Foundation's offer remains open. We could work together. Like we did at North River, I kept my voice equally public. When Mr. Wells presented my designs as his own, heads turned. Gregory's jaw tightened. That's a serious accusation. That's a documented fact. I held up my submission packet. Every design, patent, and innovation dated, filed, and protected. Before any Foundation involvement, Colin stepped forward. Your little demonstration was impressive, but the city needs proven contractors, like the one who built the Riverside complex. Theo interrupted. 20% over budget, 6 months delayed, 3 structural violations. Colin's face reddened. Those violations were dismissed. After Gregory made donations to the inspector's retirement fund, I finished. Silence stretched tight as wire. Patricia appeared from nowhere, her timing impeccable as always. Such hostility. Elena, we're all trying to help the community. Then let the community decide. I walked past them to the submission desk. Full proposal for 40 units, $38,000 per unit, 6-week completion, 20% local hiring, 10-year structural warranty. The clerk stamped it received 2:51 p.m. As we left, Rebecca Walsh from the Tribune stood waiting. Ms. Hart, Mr. Price, any comment on the competing proposals? Colin started to speak, but Gregory touched his arm. They walked away without a word. I turned to Rebecca. Larkspur Modular's proposal is public record as of 3 p.m. Anyone can compare it to alternatives. The numbers speak for themselves. That night, in the warehouse, we waited. The commission would review proposals for 5 days, then announce their selection at the gala, a detail I was certain Gregory had arranged. 10 days, Maya said. Think they'll try something else. I looked at our prototype, solid and honest in the harbor light. They have to. Their entire model depends on no one offering an alternative. We're not just threatening one contract, we're threatening their whole system. Lydia raised her beer. To threatening systems, we clinked bottles, but I couldn't shake the feeling that Gregory's silence meant something worse was coming. The Bayside Country Club ballroom glittered like a jewel box turned inside out. 8:23 p.m. Every surface caught light and threw it back, transformed crystal, silver, silk, diamonds. The same room where 30 days ago they'd called me a failure. I stood at the entrance in a simple black dress, watching Gregory and Patricia work the room. They moved like dancers who'd rehearsed for decades, a touch here, a laugh there, gathering power with every gesture. The Hart Foundation's commitment to urban renewal, Patricia's voice carried over the chamber music, has always been about lifting up those who cannot lift themselves. Maya appeared at my elbow. Ho-Har Commissioner just arrived. Reynolds looks nervous. He should be. I watched Colin Price glad-handing near the bar, his confidence too bright, too forced. They all should be. The room held 300 of Harborview's elite, tech executives, real estate developers, old money, new money, all money. The people who decided things over drinks and sealed fates with signatures. Ladies and gentlemen, the MC began. "Welcome to the Harborview Urban Recovery Gala." The lights dimmed. The presentation screen descended. A video began soft music, aerial shots of the city, images of need and hope. Then Gregory and Patricia, interviewed in their study, talking about legacy and responsibility. "Our foundation has supported numerous initiatives," Gregory said on screen, "including our latest partnership with Price Construction for emergency housing." I felt the room's attention shift, finding me in the crowd, some curious, some dismissive, all aware something was coming. "Before we present our Lifetime Achievement Award," the MC continued, "Commissioner Reynolds will announce the selection for the Riverside Relocation Project." Reynolds climbed the stage, envelope in hand. The room held its breath. Then the lights cut out, not dimmed, dead. The ballroom plunged into black. Emergency lights kicked in, casting everything in harsh white. Then the main screen blazed to life, not with the planned presentation, but with footage from Open Build Day. Our 6-hour assembly, time-lapsed to 2 minutes of pure efficiency. Theo's voice, pre-recorded, 36 square meters, assembled in 6 hours, verified cost $37,000 per unit. The screen split. Live feed from sensors we'd installed in the prototype. Temperature steady. Energy consumption 40% below standard. Structural integrity 100% after 3 weeks of harbor weather. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Reynolds stood frozen on stage. The screen changed again. Documents, patent filings, dates highlighted. My designs filed 3 weeks before the Hart Foundation grant. Colin's proposals identical designs. Filed last week. "What is this?" Gregory's voice cut through the darkness. The lights flared back. I stood at the AV control panel, remote in hand. "This," I said, my voice carrying without a microphone, "is transparency." I walked toward the stage, heels clicking in the silence. "Commissioner Reynolds, you have an announcement." Reynolds looked at Gregory, at Colin, at the crowd, now fully attentive. His hands shook slightly as he opened the envelope. "The Harborview Office of Housing and Resilience." He paused, sweat visible. "Has selected Larkspur Modular for the Riverside project." The room erupted. Not applause chaos. Questions, arguments, chairs scraping as people stood. "This is procedurally irregular," Colin protested, charging the stage. "No," Maya said, appearing with a tablet. "This is procedurally transparent. Every document filed, every comparison metric available on public record as of 3 p.m. today." Vivian Hale pushed forward. "This is obviously a stunt. The Hart Foundation's involvement guarantees nothing." I pulled up another document on screen. "Except inflated costs. Would you like to see the receipts? 2015 Community Center Price Construction billed $90,000 for Bernie Hoffman's $30,000 design. 2018 Senior Housing marked up 60% with Hart Foundation listed as developer." "Those are privileged documents," Gregory snarled. "Those are public contracts," Rebecca Walsh said from the press section. "Filed with the city, accessible to anyone who looks." I climbed onto the stage. The room was mine now, not through inheritance or connection, but through truth brutally displayed. My parents called me a failure because I wouldn't play their game, wouldn't inflate costs, wouldn't steal credit, wouldn't treat housing as a luxury commodity to be hoarded and controlled. I looked directly at them. "You were right. I am a failure at corruption, at exploitation, at turning charity into profit." Patricia started toward the stage, but Gregory caught her arm. "But I'm very good at building things. Real things, honest things." I turned to Reynolds. "The contract." He produced it, hands still shaking. I signed it there, on stage, in front of everyone, each signature a declaration. 40 units, 38,000 each, 6-week delivery, 20% local hiring. I set down the pen, looked at my parents. "You said I was a failure. You were wrong. I'm competition, and I'm just getting started." Maya handed me another document. "Oh, and Colin, that NDA you made me sign at North River. It expired yesterday. My lawyers will be in touch about the patents you're still using. The room spun into chaos. Phones out, recording starting, the story breaking in real time. I walked off the stage, through the crowd that parted like water. At the door, I turned back. Gregory and Patricia stood isolated in the center of the room, their Lifetime Achievement Award forgotten on its table. That, I said to Maya as we left, is what proving them wrong looks like. In style, she added, behind us. The gala continued, but the celebration was over. The real work was about to begin. The ballroom erupted behind us, but I didn't look back. The October night air hit sharp and clean after the suffocating perfection inside. "Elena, wait!" Commissioner Reynolds stumbled out, tie askew, still clutching the signed contract. "The Foundation members want to discuss—" "The contract is signed," Maya interrupted smoothly. "All discussions go through Larkspur Modular's legal team now." A crowd was forming outside, reporters, photographers, gala guests who'd followed the drama. Their phones created a constellation of recording lights. "Ms. Hart!" Rebecca Walsh pushed forward. "Will you continue working with the Hart Foundation? Larkspur Modular works with organizations that share our values," I said clearly. "Transparency, efficiency, and actual charity, not tax-sheltered profit schemes." Through the glass doors, I saw Patricia making her way toward us, her composure cracking. Gregory grabbed her arm, but she shook him off. She burst through the doors. "Elena, how could I, what?" I turned fully to face her. "Build something real. Succeed without your connections. Prove that your way isn't the only way. We gave you everything. You gave me conditional love with a price tag attached. Every opportunity came with strings that led back to your control." Patricia's perfectly composed face finally shattered. "You've destroyed our reputation. 40 years of building. 40 years of taking credit for other people's building," I corrected. "That's not a reputation. That's a con." Gregory emerged, his fury cold and controlled. "You think you've won one contract doesn't make a company. We have relationships you'll never access. Doors that will never open." "Good," I said simply. "I'll build my own doors." A city council member I recognized, Anna Chin, stepped out of the crowd. "Ms. Hart, several of us are very interested in Larkspur's model. Would you consider presenting to the full council next week?" Before I could answer, more voices joined in. The head of the Fishermen's Collective, 3 other construction companies Gregory had undercut over the years, a representative from the State Housing Authority. They weren't offering charity. They were offering partnership, real partnership, based on proven capability. "Larkspur Modular is scheduling meetings for next week," Maya announced, pulling out her phone. "We'll be in touch." I looked back at my parents one last time. They stood isolated in their evening finery, the gala continuing behind them like a party they were no longer invited to. "The saddest part," I said quietly enough that only they could hear, "is that you could have just been proud of me. You could have just loved me for trying to build something good. Instead, you had to own it, control it, claim it." Patricia's mouth opened, but no words came. Gregory's jaw worked silently. "I'm not your failure anymore," I continued. "I'm not your anything anymore. I'm just Elena Hart, and that's finally enough." I turned and walked toward the parking lot where Theo and Aunt Lydia waited by our truck, the one with Larkspur Modular freshly painted on the side. "Time to celebrate," Lydia asked. "Time to build," I said. 40 units in 6 weeks. We need to start tomorrow." As we drove away, I caught my reflection in the side mirror, no longer the woman seeking approval in a gilded cage, but someone who'd finally given herself permission to succeed on her own terms. 3 weeks later, the first 10 units were complete. 6 weeks later, all 40 stood ready ahead of schedule, under budget, exceeding every specification. The day we handed over the keys to the first residence, a package arrived at the warehouse. No return address. Inside, a single document, the Hart Foundation's Articles of Incorporation, with a handwritten note from Patricia. "We're restructuring. Your father and I are stepping down." I set the note aside and went back to work. There were more houses to build, more systems to change, more truth to construct in place of pretty lies. 3 months later, Forbes ran a feature, How Elena Hart Built an Empire on the Ruins of Dynasty. I framed it next to my first rejection letter, the one from Gregory's friend at North River telling me my ideas were too ambitious for someone so young. Maya found me looking at them during lunch break. Regrets. None, I said, and meant it. They called me a failure. They were right, I failed to become them. And that failure, that's my biggest success. Outside the window, our 15th project was taking shape: affordable housing that was actually affordable. Sustainable construction that actually lasted, charity that actually helped. I'd proven them wrong. And I'd done it in style. But more importantly, I'd proven myself right. And that was worth more than all the crystal chandeliers and country club memberships in the world. The woman in the mirror no longer needed their approval. She approved of herself. And that was enough. More than enough. That was everything. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Drop a comment below and let's connect. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts. What would you have done in Elena's situation? Your insights make these stories come alive. Until next time, keep building your own path, in your own style.